Today we're going to be working on creating an offer in DocuSign and filling out the 2022 purchase and sale agreement from the Georgia Association of Realtors. So we're going to start at the beginning in Command and actually create the opportunity and then link into DocuSign. So I've got my client here, John Smith. I've already created a contact card for him. I'm going to click him and go into him. And there are two ways you can create an opportunity. You can go to the Opportunities tab and create it directly from there, or you can open up their contact card and create the opportunity within the contact card. To do so, you just click over here on the right on Opportunities and then Create Opportunity. So we are going to create a buyer opportunity. Our client is John Smith. We do not need to enter an estimated closing date, but if we have it, we can go ahead and enter it in. Commission rate, we'll go ahead and put 3%. And opportunity phase, since we are going ahead and making an offer, I'm going to put active and I'm going to put negotiations. We're going to create the opportunity, and now it shows up in the contact card. It will also show up in your opportunity pipeline. We're going to open the opportunity, and from here, if you have more details you can fill in, go right ahead and do so at this time. Otherwise, if we want to jump right on into the documents, you click the Documents tab, go ahead and click a checklist type so you'll see which documents are going to be required by the office. You'll see required copies of documents that are needed. But to start the transaction, we're going to hit that Start a Transaction button, and that is going to take us into DocuSign. Now, once you log into DocuSign, it will drop you into a room that has been created for this opportunity. When you create an opportunity, you need to start every transaction within Command and then go into DocuSign from the opportunity. That links the two accounts so that you can then pull the documents directly from DocuSign into your Command. So you'll look at the Documents tab that you're dropped into. There are no documents at this time. We're going to go into the Add button. We're going to click DocuSign Forms. And as long as you've entered your NERDS number into the profile integration setting, you will have access to these. Now, in order to get a NERDS number or an NRDS number, you do have to be a member of a board. For Georgia Legacy Group, that tends to be either the Atlanta Realtors Association, otherwise known as the Atlanta Board of Realtors, 400 North Board, as well as NAMAR. Now, you'll see that we have the FMLS forms, but in order to get into the GAR forms, you just click the GAR library, and then you just start typing which documents we need. Now, we want the purchase and sale agreement, and that is Form F201. If you happen to know the numbers of the forms, you can type the form number in the search bar, and that might make it faster. Now, if you have already created a static form template, there are other videos on how to do that. But if you have already created a static form template, this is where you can actually go ahead and apply it before you go into the document. Now, for today's tutorial, I'm going to just leave that alone and not include that so that we can walk through the whole thing. So we're going to click Add Selected. And now in order to fill it out, you just click on it. And all DocuSign forms are fillable within the Documents tab. In fact, we recommend filling them out within the Documents tab and not in an envelope. This allows you to go back at a later date if anything needs to be changed. You don't have to recreate the entire form. Now, we're going to put the offer date as today's date. And the address, I've gone ahead and picked just a random property within FMLS. And we are going to pull that information over from FMLS. At this time, it does not integrate where if you put the FMLS number in, it autofills. So you will have to do some manual entry at this point, unless you have entered in the information in the details page of the documents of the DocuSign room. And you'll see I'm just flipping back and forth between the two to get the information. Now, the tax parcel ID number you'll find down here, halfway down the page. You can just highlight it, copy it, and paste it into that section. So the first section is your property address as well as the legal description. So you will pull this information from FMLS. If it is a for sale by owner, you should be able to pull this information from the tax record directly. For a legal description, if the seller has provided one to their listing agent, or hopefully the listing agent has actually pulled it from uh, a security deed or a warranty deed, they have attached it to the listing and you can download it and then attach it as an exhibit. If they have not, you can always go into number 3, which is described as deed book and page, which you can also find on the tax record. By clicking that number, it opens up the realist tax ID or tax information for it. So if you scroll down, you'll see under the sales history, you'll see like last sales date, and you'll see that deed book and page, and you can grab the information from there. Now, the best place to look is to see if they've actually added a legal description. So within FMLS, they should have this documents button, and you'll see that they do have a legal description. So they have the legal description, the seller's disclosure, and this is actually of latent defects. And they also have the community association disclosure. So we are actually going to download each of those. So for now, we're going to go back over to the Documents tab within DocuSign, and we are going to click that we are going to attach that as an exhibit. Now, should you want to pull the legal description yourself and fill in this number 4, just be sure to fill in each section and do not leave any blanks. If it is unknown, you can put NA or 0, but be sure that you are copying it directly from the plat book. Now, for purchase price, this is what you've discussed with your buyer as their offer price. Now, one trick with DocuSign is it does not allow commas. So you need to make sure that you have enough zeros, and you can put the comma in at this point, but it will not allow you to save it with the comma. So you just go ahead and take that out. Seller's closing costs. This is again what you've discussed with your buyer as well as their lender as to what they are allowed to ask for from the seller. For today, we're just going to put $5,000. This is money that the seller will contribute toward any buyer's closing costs, lender fees, things like that. Closing date. This is again something you've discussed with your buyer. You've discussed what their closing date needs to be, as well as you've discussed this with their lender and what an appropriate timeline is for them to get the loan turned around. So for our purposes, we're just going to go ahead and put the end of February. And then you're going to discuss at what time possession takes place. Is it going to be at closing? How many days after closing? And what time after closing? Now, if it takes place after closing, that means the seller retains possession until that date. If that's the case, you do need to create the temporary occupancy for seller and then fill that out and attach it as an exhibit to the contract. Today, we're just going to put at closing. Closing firm. This is where you would talk with your buyer and discuss the options. We're going to use our alliance partner today, Kelly and Sorhan. One of our other alliance partners is Campbell and Brannon. Let's just go ahead and fill out their phone number as well. And you can use whichever office is closest to you or most convenient to the buyer. So we will put that we are going to be closing in the Alpharetta location. And their phone number is that. Now, holder of earnest money. This will typically be the office that you work in. So it could be either Keller Williams North Atlanta, Keller Williams Roswell, or Keller Williams Chat North. Be sure that if you are holding a large amount of earnest money, that the closing attorney is a closing attorney that is familiar with our offices and that will take checks from our offices. Not every office is able to wire earnest money to the closing attorney for closing. So if you have asked for $30,000 in earnest money, be sure that the closing attorney is going to take a check from the broker for $30,000 at closing. If it is going to be more than that and it is a closing attorney that is not familiar with our three offices, be sure that you are then having the closing attorney hold the earnest money. And in that case, you do need to fill out the 510 and the 511. One is signed by the buyer and seller, the other is signed by the attorney acknowledging that they will be holding the earnest money. So for today, we're just going to put that it's going to be held by Keller Williams, North Atlanta. And the next section is how much earnest money and how it will be delivered and when it will be delivered. You have the option of check, ACH, cash, or wire. This is what is standard on the purchase and sale agreement from GAR. However, you do need to check with your offices and find out what types of payments they will accept. Check with your office. Most will accept a check or wire transfer. They sometimes will do ACH. Cash, they do not accept. However, they would accept a cashier's check or a money order. So we're just going to put check for today. And if you have the earnest money in your possession, you can click the letter A, which is you have the monies as of the offer date. If you do not have the earnest money, but you will be getting it within the next couple of days and turning it into the holder, you fill out section B and you fill out the amount. And within 3 days is kind of the standard, but that's really however fast you can get the earnest money and what the seller would accept. If you are having your client send it from out of state, if it is by check, either have them overnight it, or if it is mail, you need to make sure that that time frame allows for delivery to the broker. And then C is if there is some other special earnest money delivery that is going to be happening. Um, Typically, you will be using A or B. If you are using C, make sure you click it and then be very specific with how the terms of the earnest money are going to be handled. The next section is your inspection and due diligence. This is this is your client's time to inspect the property. If you put 0 here, it does not mean they are not allowed to inspect it. It just means that they do not get their earnest money back during that time frame should they decide to terminate the contract after the inspection. So can sometimes be confusing, and they think if there's no due diligence, they don't get to have an inspection. That's not correct. You do get to have an inspection. Every buyer has the right to inspect. However, if you want to protect their earnest money during that time frame while they're being inspecting, and should anything pop up on the inspection, you want to make sure that you have a due diligence period. Talk to your buyer, talk to their inspector, find out what the turnaround time is to get that report, and then come up with an appropriate time frame. For today, we're just going to put a week, so we're going to put 7 days. And then option payment for due diligence period. And it is money paid directly to the seller for the due diligence, for the right to due diligence. So if there's some pushback on, I don't want to give them a due diligence period, the buyer does have the ability to offer option money paid directly to the seller. This is non-refundable, and it is not the same as earnest money. So just be aware, if you do option money, the broker does not hold it. It does not get held in escrow. It is held directly by the seller and paid directly by the seller because it is non-refundable. So for today, we're just going to leave it. We're not going to fill that in, but we're going to go ahead and fill in NA. And that's a note you want to make. If there are blanks, you want to make sure you fill in NA on them. Number 9 is lead-based paint. This is a federal requirement. It's an EPA federal regulation. It is required that you fill this in at the time of offer. So you need to check that listing and look and see when it was built. So this was built in 1980. We are good. It is not built before 1978. So we can actually click this was not built prior to 1978. If the home was built prior to 1978, you need to check that first circle. And then you also need to make sure you receive a lead-based paint exhibit from the seller and include it as an exhibit to the contract and have your buyer and yourself sign it in the appropriate boxes. Now, you are going to be representing the buyer as a client, which means you need to have a signed buyer brokerage agreement with them. If you are working with them as a customer, you will have an agreement to work with buyer as a customer, and then you would check this box right here. Now, you will need to go ahead. It's a good idea if you have this information to go ahead and fill it in for the listing agent. It's good to send them a complete offer. In this case, we went ahead and just chose a property that was listed by another agent within our office. So in this case, both agents are in Keller Williams, North Atlanta. You would click number 4. You are representing them as a designated agent of the same brokerage. So in this case, you would click both of these. And then you can click down on C, which is if there is any material relationship disclosure. This is if you are related to your client. If you yourself are the client, it's a disclosure to the other party that that there is a relationship between the licensee for the broker and one of the clients. So in this case, there is no relationship. So we're just going to click none. And then time limit of the offer is it's basically a time limit for them to respond before the offer expires. Be careful putting midnight or noon, simply because people get confused as to which one is AM, which one is PM. We're going to put 11 o'clock and we're going to do AM on the date of January, and we'll do 25th since it is a weekend. Now each section within page 2 through, I believe, 6 or 7, it's explanations of everything on that first page. So a couple of changes that happened for 2022 is the option money is paid directly to the seller. There was some confusion over that in years past, and agents trying to hold it in escrow with the broker. It is not held in escrow at the broker's office. It is paid directly to the seller. Um, the buyer may examine the title and or obtain a survey. They don't have to do both. They can do one or the other, or they don't have to do either. And then earnest money is paid. This is where you need to check with your broker and see how it is accepted in that offer. The holder can determine how it is paid. And the other thing is with earnest money, check with your office. A lot of times there are fees required for receiving wires. Georgia Association of Realtors and GREC do allow the broker to charge that to the client that is wiring the money. So be sure to check with your wiring instructions and see if they need to include an additional fee for the wire. Notice is deemed delivered. If you were to send an email notice to the seller or the listing agent on a Sunday night, but it was not opened until Monday morning, it is deemed delivered as of Sunday night. So it's always a good idea when you're doing these contracts for the first time is read them. Go through and read each section. And you'll see it's a lot more involved than the first page. But this is where you want to make sure that you have a firm grasp of what is in your contract and what you are committing your buyer to. So you'll see goes all the way through page 7. And on 7, you'll have the limit of broker's liability. This is just a protection for the broker. And then you get to the exhibits and addenda. If you have something that you want to attach to the contract, it has to be checked and labeled here. Exhibits are letters. Any amendments are numbers. So you'll have exhibit A, B, C, D, and then you'll have amendment 1, 2, 3, 4. So for this, we're going to have it's an all cash offer. That's going to be exhibit A. They did have a community association disclosure. We downloaded that before. We'll put that as B. They did not need to have a lead-based paint, so we do not need to check that. However, it is right here. They have a seller property disclosure exhibit, so that is going to be exhibit C. And then we also were including the legal description on here as well. So you'll have A, B, C, and D for this contract. If there are any stipulations you want to have in addition to what is in the first page of the contract and what is in the descriptions later on, you need to make sure you put them in the special stipulations. This would be anything in addition that they want to ask for. If they want to ask for a home warranty or a termite warranty, things of that nature. Be very, very careful and mindful if you are trying to draft special stipulations on your own. These are legal documents. You are not a lawyer. So unless you are getting the special stipulations that are already given to you from GAR, and there is a section within the GAR forms that actually has special stipulations written out for you, you might want to run them by our alliance partner, either Campbell and Brannon or O'Kelly and Sorhan. They are always there to help us and will help you draft that special stipulation in the correct way. Now, 2022 form, it's a very, very small box. So if you have more stipulations than fit in this box, you need to click that additional special stipulations page, and then you need to add the F246 and fill in the additional information. We don't need it for now. So then we're going to go on to the signature page. So it pulls this information over from your command into DocuSign. So it already has a lot of the information that is pulled in. Now, you will need to make sure that you put your license information in, as well as your phone number. Basically, if it's got a section, you need to fill it out. I do not have fax, so I do not want to have that. Your board membership needs to be here. I am 400 North. Our address autofills. Again, we don't want to receive notice by fax, so we are going to put NA. Our broker code is KWNF01. Chat North and Roswell will need to get that from their office. And then you need the firm license number. Again, you can get this from your broker. Again, it's just a nice touch if you can go ahead and fill in the information on the seller side as well. And you can actually get their information by clicking on their name at the bottom. And it just creates less work on their part and kind of is a nice touch and comes across as you know what you're doing. So you just pull all their information. Now you may not know what their board affiliation is. That's fine. You do not need to worry about filling that in. They can add that when they are signing their clients on the document. So you just want to make sure that you fill in the full address and then the broker phone number, which is actually 291. No fax number. And their broker license number. And that is all you have to fill in. You do not fill in the binding date at this time. That comes after the contract is accepted by the seller. And you just click Save and Close. Oh, and you will see that this is not a valid form. So we actually have to fill it in. They change this every now and then. So if you ever get a message like this when you are filling out a contract, go ahead and read further down, and it says supported formats are month, day, and year, or month dash day, year. So you want to just fill it in the way that they want it. So in this case, they just want it like this. And then we can click Save and Close. And it will let you save, and you can just close out of that message. Now we do want to add the all cash offer. We need to pull that exhibit up. And we will add selected. And once we open that up, you'll notice that everything we filled in on the first, if it applies, if it has the same sections over here, it will pull it over. So we want to make sure we put the exhibit letter up at the top. And then you also want to make sure that you include the offer date and make sure it matches. It has to match the purchase and sale agreement. So you need to make sure that that date matches. That's something that we see often in compliance, is that that date does not match the offer date. So for an all cash exhibit, obviously they're paying all cash. However, you do want to go ahead and put that they have they're reserving the right, if they choose, to obtain a loan. So we just went ahead and clicked number 2 here, and reserves the right to pay all or a portion of the purchase price by obtaining a non-institutional first mortgage or other loan, including a private hard money loan. You can also do an obtaining an institutional first mortgage secured by a deed to secure debt on the property. We just went ahead and clicked that one for this. You also have the option to say they do not have the right to obtain, which in that case you would need to click B. So if you click B, make sure nothing up here is checked, because it is an or, it is not an and. So we're going to uncheck that for now. Verification of funds. If you are presenting an all cash offer, you do need to show proof of funds to the listing agent and the seller. So you have the optional to either do it with the offer. You can include it as part of the offer. You just need to add it and make sure it's included. Otherwise, you can say within, let's say, 3 days from binding, they will be providing proof of funds to the seller. Authorization and security, seller's right to terminate. Those are just sections that do not require anything being filled out, but please read them and familiarize yourself. An all cash offer, you still have the option to have an appraisal contingency. So you want to make sure you're protecting your buyer. Go ahead and click shall have, make sure it has to appraise for the offer price. The type of appraisal is noted in section A, and section B is where who gets to select the appraiser. So obviously you're representing the buyer. You do want the buyer to select their own appraiser for their appraisal. Rights of the buyer if it does not appraise. If it doesn't appraise, you want to put a particular time frame that they are allowed to request as the seller either lower their price or that they have the ability to terminate. Make sure that you know the turnaround time on the appraisal. For our purposes, we're going to put 21 days. That's 3 weeks. So 3 weeks from binding, we have that amount of time to request the appraisal. The appraisal be done. Should it come in low, we have the ability to ask that the price be lowered, or our buyer can walk away from the contract. And then you will just have the buyer's initials and the seller's initials at the bottom. So we're going to click Save and Close. And then you'll see that we have our purchase and sale and our all cash exhibit. Now, in order to get this over to the listing agent, you of course have to have your buyer to sign it. Now you'll notice we don't have the seller disclosure or the community association disclosure or the legal exhibit. You can add these in. And the easiest way to do it is I've already got them downloaded in this bar at the bottom. I can just drag them up into my DocuSign room. The other way you can add them is you can add them directly from your computer, or if you have them in a Google Drive, you can add them from there as well. Now we want to get these signed, so we're going to select all, and we are going to hit this little pin button up here that says Create Envelope. That is going to put these documents directly in an envelope for you, which is what we send out for signature. It's a good idea up here at the envelope name to actually name what the envelope is. This will help you later on when you have 4 or 5 different envelopes that are signed. It helps you identify which documents are in there. So we're just going to do the offer to purchase. And something you might want to do, it's a good idea to do, is have it in order. I know that we put the all cash exhibit as A, we put the legal description as D, and the community association disclosure is B, seller disclosure is C. So now it's in order of how it's listed on the purchase and sale agreement. Down here, you'll need to add recipients. We're going to do pre-tagged roles. This automatically will put signature spots where they need to be on the contract. So we're just going to select buyer 1, and then you want to do buyer's agent, which is yourself. Email subject, this is how it's going to come through email to your client. You can just put however you want to identify it, as well as any note or instructions to your client. You'll click next button, and you'll notice that we have all the information filled in, and they automatically have a place to sign on each page. So you'll just scroll down and make sure that all the signature places are where they need to be on the purchase and sale and the all cash. Now, because these were PDFs that were uploaded from the listing agent, they do not have the ability to be filled in. So what we're going to do is you're going to flip over here to your name, and you're going to put text boxes in to fill them out. And this is again where it's important to know which date you put on the offer so that you make sure it matches. And you'll see that you need to add a place for the buyer to sign, as well as the date they signed and just their printed name. So all these things over here are things you can drag into here to sign. Now you'll see that they've already had their seller sign. And then again, on the seller disclosure, we're going to need to put in the offer date, as well as the exhibit letter. And again, you'll have to add the buyer's signature. And you can adjust these sizes because these signature spots are very small. And then the date that they signed. And then you'll have the legal description here. Now, while we're on here, we'll go ahead and put an initial. So you see that the seller has initialed. We're going to put the exhibit letter up at the top. You'll notice that the reason they had that labeled Exhibit A is they pulled this off of a warranty deed or a security deed, and that is the Exhibit A for those documents. So for our purposes, we want it to be Exhibit D, which is why we put the note up at the top. There is the initial section next to there, and you've got all your signature spaces ready. And then you just need to click Send for signature. And you'll notice that when you come back in here, it says waiting for others. But now, once everybody signs, you'll go back to your documents and you will then have signed forms within your DocuSign room that you can then combine or download and email to a seller. And if you have any questions about filling out a purchase and sale agreement, you can always reach out to your offices as well as your broker, and they are happy to help with any questions you might have.